I'm going to show you a super simple system that anyone can use to sell more of their digital products with Facebook ads. I think a lot of people overcomplicate this, but it's actually a lot more simple than you would think. So I'm going to dive into these different campaigns in a second here and show you some examples. But I just want to explain it from like a bird's eye view, and then we'll get a bit more detailed. So when we got our digital product ready, we got our funnel ready, and we're ready to drive traffic, we're always going to start off with one campaign, and this is the testing campaign. So this is what it's structured like. We're going to have one campaign here at the top, and then within that campaign, you're going to have different ad sets. And within each ad set, you're going to have 3 different ads. Now, these ad sets, which is this middle block here, they're basically going to focus on one angle. So, for example, if we're selling a muscle building program for guys, one angle might focus on how building muscle will increase your confidence in social situations. Maybe angle 2 is going to be focusing on how you feel walking around the pool on your lad's holiday in the summer with your shirt off. Maybe the third angle will be focusing more on kind of like the progress that you're making in the gym. And you can see basically each angle is going to target different types of customers, and it's going to mostly focus on different pain points and frustrations of that specific customer. And the goal is obviously to test as many of these as possible to see which one is the winner, which one resonates most with the offer and the audience. And then the goal is obviously to scale that. Now, the different ads within each of the ad set, they're just going to have small different variations. So for example, it could be like the hook. So the first sentence that you say at the start of the video, it could be the headline that you use on your static ad. It could be the graphic or the image that you use on your static ad. We're not going to dive deep into like what the creatives look like today. We're going to focus more on like strategy and structure, but each ad set is going to have a different angle, and then each ad within that ad set is going to have like small different variations, but again, still focusing on that main angle. Now, we use ad set budget optimization, which basically means that we set the budget at the ad set level. So each of these ad sets is going to spend the exact amount that we allocate to it. Now, some people will test with CBO, which is basically campaign budget optimization, and that allows Facebook to distribute the budget between each of these ad sets. So for example, if you set the CBO at $200 a day, the whole campaign is going to spend $200, but Facebook could allocate $100 to angle 1, $50 to angle 2. It could allocate like $1 to angle 3 and 4. So it's going to distribute wherever it sees fits. Now, the theory behind this is like, Facebook knows more than we do in terms of the data and the customers and the users. So it's going to spend the budget efficiently, and it's not going to allocate spend to any of these angles that won't work. I've just personally found that I don't like this. I find that I find more winning ads by manually controlling the budget during the testing phase. So what that means is instead of setting up a campaign budget of like $200 for the whole campaign, I'll set this at $50, $50, $50, $50. And this whole angle will spend $50. And then I can give it like a proper fair test, because I have found that sometimes if you set the budget at the campaign level, Facebook might not allocate any budget to angle number 5. But if I was to run this as an ABO and actually give this $50 a day in spend, it could actually work and convert and make money. So I just found it's a lot easier. Well, not easier, but it's a lot more profitable to test at the ad set budget level. So you're going to give each angle a proper test. And obviously after a couple of days, if it's not getting results, then you can just turn it off. So that's basically the structure. Now, a lot of people have this and they do this already, but what they find is they'll launch these initial tests, and what will happen is maybe over the first couple of days, they'll start getting sales and it looks like it's working. But then after like day 5, results will drop. And they're caught in like a constant hamster wheel of just launching new creatives in their testing campaign, and nothing works for like longer than a week. So they don't feel very confident to scale any of it. And this is a big problem. So let me explain what's going on here. So if, for example, we are selling a $27 product, like it's a digital product, it's an ebook or like a mini course, and we set our ad set budget at like $50 a day. So what happens is Facebook is going to get that $50 and it's going to show it to the people that it believes is going to convert the easiest, like the most. So like the hottest people. So this is typically what happens is you're going to launch your ad, and in the first few days, it's going to get sales, and you're like, oh shit, I've got a winner. But after like day 5, results flatline, and then they tank. And I'm going to show you some examples of this in a second. And the reason why is because for Facebook to optimize your campaigns and your ads effectively, it needs data, and it needs to exit what we call the learning phase. So if it exits the learning phase, that basically means that you want your ad set to get more than 50 conversions in a 7-day period. So you need to get 50 sales of your digital product from that one ad set in order for it to exit the learning phase and for it to basically continue scaling. But what happens is because our ad set testing budget is at only, say, at $50 a day, we're not spending enough for us to generate 50 sales. Even if we get a good CPA, we're not going to be getting those 50 sales in a 7-day period. So after like day 5, when Facebook realizes that it's not going to be able to exit the learning phase, it stops learning and optimizing as efficiently as it could, and that's why results drop. So what we typically do is we run this campaign knowing that these ad angles, they can work in the beginning, but they're not going to last over the long term. So we just test them for like a 3 to 5 day period, and anything that we see that is working, then we transfer it into the scaling campaign. So basically we will continually run these tests, and after the 3 to 5 days, let's say angle 1 doesn't work, let's say angle 2 doesn't work, let's say angle 3 does work, this does work, this does work, and let's say this doesn't work. And what determines if it works or not? It depends on obviously your price point. It depends how much profit you make per customer. But for example, if you want to set a target CPA. So let's say, for example, if I'm selling a $27 product, I might want to make sure that my CPA is below $25. Or an example for one of the campaigns that we're running right now, it's like a $17 front end product, but we have some upsells. So we're happy with a CPA of $25. Even though the front end product is $17, we've got some one-time offers and some order bumps, which means that our average order value is above $25 on the front end. So therefore, we're happy to spend $25 per sale. Let's say for example, in the first few days that this angle got like one sale, so it got like one sale for like $50. Same with this one. But these 3 here, they were getting sales for under $25. Then what I would do is transfer them to the scaling campaign. Now I'm going to leave these running in the testing campaign, but the reality is that after a few days, even though it worked in the beginning, and even though we're going to try and scale them, the ones in the testing campaign are going to stop performing because, again, it's not going to exit the learning phase. So again, the goal is to identify the winning angles in the testing campaign. And then once, after a few days, it's proven that it can get purchases for under, your target CPA, then you're going to transfer it to the scaling campaign. So this is what the scaling campaign looks like. It is going to be a CBO. Because all of these angles inside of this scaling campaign, they've already been tested and proven that they get customers for under the target KPI. We don't need to set it at the ad set budget level. We're just now going to put all the winners into a scaling campaign, and now we're going to let Facebook decide which one of the winners has got the better scalability. And whichever one it decides, it's going to spend more of the budget on this one. So this can be, say the CBO is at $500 a day. It could spend like $400 on angle 1, $50 on angle 2, and $50 on angle 37. Now, I've put angle 37 in there because you can basically just have an unlimited amount of testing ABOs. And what you're continually doing, even though you're scaling maybe your first couple of winners, you're going to continue to start testing inside of the ABO so you can find new winners and then you can transfer them. And it's just a repeatable process. You launch more ad set budget testing ads in the testing campaign. You let it run for 3 to 5 days. You kill what doesn't work. You try and scale what does work, and you just continue that process. So what does that look like in reality then? So you can see here that we have three different campaigns running. So this bottom one here that I'm highlighting is our testing campaign. And the target CPA for this is $25. So you can see on average here, our cost per purchase is $23 on the front end. This campaign here is our scaling campaign. And then this campaign here is a second scaling campaign, which I'll talk about in a second. So just to show you an example of what it looks like. So you can see here that in this campaign here, we've got 30 ad sets, although it says ad set 29. So we've kind of like doubled up on one of the numbers. But you can see these are basically all of our testing ad sets. And we're testing them all at $50 a day. Now, I want to show you an example of one. So if we go for last month, and we'll try and find one that was working well. So let's say this one here. We can see that last month, maybe go to the cost per purchase. So this one here. So you can see last month that this ad set in our testing campaign was getting a purchase for like $19, which is obviously above our KPI, right? Which is great. Now, this month though, that same campaign jumped to like $117. So that's obviously not very good. And that's what I'm talking about, what's happened here. So, what happened here? Where we launched it last month, it started working really well, but then once it realized that it couldn't exit the learning phase, it just tanked. So we went from a $19 CTA to $117 CPA, which you don't need to be a mathematician to understand that that's not very good. So you can see that a majority of these testing ones are turned off. And right now we're just testing 3 different angles. You can see that the 27, 28, 29, so that are our most recent ones. If we look at the spend, this one's been live for less than 24 hours. These two have been live for about 3 days. And if we look at the cost per purchase, you can see this one. I'm probably going to turn this off at some point today. CPA is $51, which is not good. We want to make sure that it's under $25, and this is at $26. So again, it's just on that like that borderline. So I'll let it run for like 1 to 2 more days. If it goes below $25, then I will put it into our scaling campaign. So that's like a clear example of what we're doing here. The scaling campaign, it looks a little bit like this. So you can see that these are the different ABOs that we have started to scale inside of our scaling campaign. So we've got these 3 running right now that have been running for like a couple of weeks. And you can see that the cost per purchase is $20, $20, $20. So that's good. It's under our CPA of 25. These 2 down here, these did work in the testing campaign. So we tried to scale them, but just for whatever reason, Facebook didn't like them. And we basically turned them off because these weren't performing as well as the others. And then these top 2 here, you can see that they've hardly spent any money because I literally launched these, I think, this morning before I made this video. So they've spent less than $1 each. But you can see that Facebook is going to allocate a majority of the budget to 1 or 2 of the different ad sets in the scaling campaign. So right now we're spending, I think on this one, we're right $300 a day. But you can see that it's spending most of it on these 2 here. And you can see here that because I've launched these 2 this morning, these are still in the learning phase. This one has got learning limited, and then these 2 are active. So what I talked about here, where like the goal is to launch them and make sure, and then we launch them in the scaling campaign once we've tested them, and we launch them in the scaling campaign with a bigger budget so that they exit the learning phase. And that's exactly what these two ad sets have done here. If we look at like the last 7 days, for example, you can see that, 18, 53, and then 40. So the general rule is 50 conversions in a 7-day period. But as you can see, it doesn't always need to be exactly 50. This one in the last 7 days has got 40. And it still exited the learning phase. So that's the goal. Now, I do have 3 different campaigns running right now. So just a bit of context for this offer, our main audience is the US. So this testing campaign is only targeting US buyers. And what we do is basically once we have tested it against the US audience, we launch it into a scaling campaign, which is this campaign here. which is also targeting US buyers. Now, to scale even further, what we've done is we've launched a second scaling campaign, which is going to a worldwide audience. Now, this is obviously not everyone can do this. It does depend on your product, your offer. But for us, we can sell worldwide. So I would encourage you, if you can, then definitely test it. We don't test it against the worldwide audience because we don't want like two different testing campaigns. It just overcomplicates the whole process. Our theory is that for a majority of products, if you can test it against a US audience and it's profitable, then it's very likely that against a worldwide audience, it's also going to work, especially for like low ticket, like digital products, as long as obviously the product is can be sold to different countries. And as you can see here, the testing campaign on average is getting a CPA of $23, so below our target of $25. Our worldwide campaign is actually getting it cheaper for $21. So it's actually performing better than the US scaling campaign. Now you might be thinking, well, if the worldwide audience scaling campaign is getting sales for $21, the US one is $27, and you said that your target CPA was 25, like why are you still running it? And it comes down to like what the goal of your campaign is. Now for us, the goal isn't to make money on the front end. You'll see that inside the ads manager, we're only tracking the front end sale of the front end product, which is $17. So you'll actually see our ROAS sucks. Our ROAS is 0.66, which is not good, obviously. But this pixel that's basically tracking inside the ads manager is only firing on the front end product, which is $17. Again, we have some order bumps that are bringing basically the front end AOV to above $25. So that's why we're comfortable spending $25 to get a customer. But that's not even the goal of the campaign isn't to make money on that $25 sale. The goal is to upsell these people into the back end offer, which is where basically we make all the money on this. So the theory is, well, it's not even theory, but the idea is that, yes, okay, the US audience is getting us at scale a slightly higher CPA. So we are losing on average like $1 to $2 per customer whenever someone buys from this campaign. But because they're from the US, they're more affluent, they're going to be much more likely to buy the higher end coaching in the back end. So for us, I don't mind getting people from the US to buy for $27 and spending a couple of dollars or losing a couple of dollars to get that sale, because the conversion in the back end to the coaching program is going to be much higher from the US audience. From the worldwide audience, we're obviously going to get a lot less buyers to like a 2K coaching offer, for example, in the back end, just because they have lower disposable income. So we're obviously like treating each campaign a little bit individually in terms of what we see as acceptable or not acceptable. But I imagine over the long term, over the next 90 days, we'll make more money from the scaling US campaign than we will from the scaling worldwide campaign, just because we will have more back-end buyers.